happened. I have no idea. Just can't find anything.
Wow.
I've been looking around going, there's got to be something here that says, but I have not. Well, at least not yet. I'll keep searching around somewhere.
Okay.
It exists. You'll find it.
Then I have another one for it, another one, and I'll get started.
Yeah.
I am Rh negative blood. That's my blood type.
Me too.
Oh, you are?
Oneg.
Ooh, look at us.
Alien brothers.
We're both alien brothers.
Oh yeah, from another mother.
Congratulations, meet
Okay.
your brother.
Have you done any homework on negative blood theory?
No.
Okay, real quick and dirty. Negative blood, the theory behind negative blood is it is primary to a certain spot on this earth. The spot is everything near and around the Rock of Gibraltar. So it's Portugal, Spain, Morocco.
Oneg?
Oneg, no, just neg in general
Neg in general.
is there. The population, I believe it's 12 to 13% of the population is just negative. So here's my question. Why? Why I don't understand. Why is it such a small population, yet everything is positive because you're type matched against an ape, which is positive. That's how they typed it. Rhesus monkeys are A's. RH stands for rhesus. It's the rhesus monkey type. It's A positive or A, whatever the blood type of positive is. That's what it's type matched against.
Wow.
So I kept on asking myself, I go, where did negative blood come from? And what's interesting about it, there's a unique subset of groups of people who I've learned have negative blood that I'm attracted to for some reason. You're one. I have 4 other clients that have a negative blood type.
Really?
Yeah, it's strange. I'm just telling you, it's really weird. I have never asked, what's your blood? I should do a survey of my clientele. What's your blood type? What's their blood
That's
type?
awesome.
Who do you know?
See if you could pick out the ones that have.
I maybe, but one of my clients, he's a fish guy. He's a negative blood. Stacy's a negative blood. You're negative blood.
They had some theory about COVID at one point that blood type might indicate a likelihood to catch COVID or
I heard this one too.
Okay, and you've both had it.
Yeah.
Right, but when did you have it? Did you have it late in the game or early?
Yeah, I had it in December of last year.
Right.
Which is late.
Right,
You just had it.
right. I don't know if there's anything to it, but
I don't know.
yeah.
But I'm just sharing with you some of the readings I've had and like, okay, what's the logic to this?
all right. Welcome. We've been having a fascinating conversation about blood types. Today, for representing you in person, we have Liz and David. And on Zoom so far, we have Doris, we have Lois, we have Arona.
Hey.
Hi. And we have Lynn. Lynn is on Zoom tonight. Hi, Lynn. Okie dokie.
Yes.
I read one of those infomercial kind of things that you get on internet sites. Like, let's say you're looking at a news thing, then underneath the news, there'll be these paid for kind of commercial kind of things. So this one was, the only reason I read it is because I go to Weight Watchers, and Oprah is like an investor in Weight Watchers. And it was talking about some diet pill that I didn't do any research into whether this is true. I didn't do any research into whether this is true, but there's some kind of keto diet pill that is marketing itself as being Oprah's product. I'm assuming you would get sued.
No, they find a way around that.
Right, it could be. So I did not do any, I haven't done any research about this, but the Just making sure here as people are coming on. They're all being let in. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, so in the script that goes along with it, it was saying that Weight Watchers is good and everything, but if you really need to lose weight quickly, so you're going to need something else. So this is the something else, some kind of pill you take at night. Obviously, it solves all of your problems, and you lose like 60 pounds
In a week.
in a short period of time, and it does what Weight Watchers can't do, which is help you lose weight quickly when you need to. And apparently she was having heart issues and she needed to drop a significant amount of weight quickly, and therefore she challenged, this is again according to the
Gossip column.
right, this is that infomercial.
Mhm.
According to the infomercial, she challenged Weight Watchers to come up with a pill. It doesn't say that it's a Weight Watchers pill though. I don't know, it's very vague in its thing, but she challenged them to come up with this pill, and now they've done it. See if you can see it. It's called like Oprah Keto pill or something. So, but in the text, it said something that suggested that this whole thing of working a system and your goal being lifestyle change and working a system is, there's times when that's just not gonna can be good enough. There's times when you need the pill. You need something that's going to, and this got all sorts of reactions in my insides, especially because I'm a fan of Weight Watchers. But and very much thinking about change and the work you found it?
It's called the Keto Blast.
The Keto Blast. Does it
It's a
say?
gummy.
It's a gummy.
It's a
That's right.
gummy.
It's a
Like-
gummy.
Gummy.
Like, what is this? This is
Yeah.
like,
Right. So it's
anyway,
there.
go ahead.
Right. So obviously we're in Elul. We're approaching Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and thinking about working towards change, meaningful change that's going to impact our lives. So this just, I don't know, it just struck me as
Meaningful change.
just the idea, the idea that, again, I'm sure there are situations where you just have to lose weight no matter what. But as we all know, that if you do something that didn't take any work, it's very unlikely to be meaningful in the long run. It's just the way it is. If it came that way, it can go that way. It's like it came with no effort, it can go with no effort. There's very few things like that. Rabbi Twersky, Rabbi Michael Twersky, he should live long, good years and good health. He once said this about the Mizbeach, the altar, at the end of the Torah portion of Yisro, where after the discussion of the 10 commandments, the 10 statements, it talks about building an altar. And one of the things it says about building the altar is that you should not use metal tools in order to carve the altar. It should be rough hewn stones. And so Rashi quotes a midrash over there. What's the problem with using metal tools? So Rashi quotes the midrash. The midrash says that which is used to shorten man's life should not be used on the altar, which is for the purpose of lengthening man's life. So it seems like what it means by lengthening man's life, what it means that it is part of a process that allows you a richer connection to the divine. And when you're connected to the divine, that is ultimately life. So the Mizbeach is there to help you have a good long life, and metal is used to shorten your life. Now, usually the way that's understood is that metal is how we fashion swords, and swords are kill people. Swords kill people. People don't kill people. Swords kill people.
Go figure.
Thousands of years ago, sword manufacturers were being sued by people whose families were dying in battle. So, yeah, so, but Rabbi Twersky suggested an alternate approach to it, that instead of thinking about it as talking about weapons, think about it talking about technology, because metal, the plow is made from metal.
Yeah.
And technology shortens, the actual term was shortens man's days. So you could say that technology shortens man's days. It makes the workday shorter. At a time when it used to plow by, I guess, by hand, before there were, right, but how you couldn't do it without a blade.
Right.
If there was no blade, I mean, plowing wasn't really possible. If you were trying to do that, it would take forever to get it done. But with a blade, now you can plow much quicker, and all the various other tools, and then technology eventually. It is what allows us to have days where we're not spending all day cooking or all day washing our clothing like they used to. Between washing your clothing and cooking, that was hours and hours of work that people were doing every day, and that gets resolved through technology. So you could argue that technology shortens man's days. So he was suggesting that perhaps one of the messages of this Chazal, in other words, their understanding of the prohibition of using metal on the altar, is to tell us that there isn't a technology of the spirit. There's no button you can push to move from point A to point B in the spiritual world. You can grow. We very much are bidden to work hard and to grow, and you can grow, but growth on a spiritual plane happens, and it's always going to happen the same way. It's going to be step by step. It's going to involve preparation, study, application of the lessons in our everyday life, going 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward, 2 steps forward, 3 steps backward, 5 steps forward, 2 steps backward. That experience is going to be something we're always going to have. That's what he was suggesting, but there isn't like an elevator that you just push the button and suddenly you've risen high. Now, there are times, many times, that people have thought that was what was available. If you read the electric Kool-Aid acid test, which is a very important work, which I read last year, surprised that I had not read it before. I actually listened to it on audiobook on several trips to New York a couple years ago. But they thought that they had found a magic elixir, that something that could open up the world of meaning to regular people, a world that seemed to be available to mystics and holy people, perhaps, but not available to the average person. And here was this chemical mixture, LSD or psilocybin or ayahuasca. Nowadays, you see it touted. Brett Favre famously talking about using ayahuasca. so these are being presented as a kind of magical elixir that allows us to have spiritual experiences just by swallowing something, deep, profound spiritual experiences just by swallowing, life-changing, and that's how it's often touted, life-changing, transformative spiritual experiences just by ingesting something. There's even rabbis, I mean, there's a rabbi in Israel who has a bit of a following, who's trying to encourage people to use ayahuasca, which is the Peruvian, I think it's a vine or something that's similar to peyote, sort of similar to peyote, for these kind of spiritual transformations. But again, they thought that's really what they thought they had come upon. That's what Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert and all these people on the East Coast thought they came up. That in the electric Kool-Aid acid test, the guys from the West Coast meet up with the guys from the East Coast. And the guys on the East Coast, not overly impressed with the guys from the West Coast. The West Coast are like these unruly pranksters. Yeah, they're not as refined as the professors from Harvard who are doing it on the East Coast. But anyways, they're all thinking that they've come across the magic pill that's going to make it happen, this transformation. You're going to see God. You're going to see the spiritual world.
See a lot more than God.
Right. You're going to see all those elements that you've read about. You're going to, and the very seeing of it is going to transform us. And it's just available. All you have to do is drink this. Right. And then it did not take long, even I think in the electric Kool-Aid acid test, I don't know how many years that covered, but it wasn't a lot of years when they came to the realization that you got to move on, that it's not there. And Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass, he recognized that this doesn't, it does do something. Something happened. You know, you could have an experience that showed you something, but it's not taking you anywhere. You're not going anywhere. They call it a trip, like you went somewhere.
Mind altering. What?
Right.
Trip. That's what
Right. A trip.
Like
Like you're going somewhere. Now, I personally have never done LSD or peyote or ayahuasca or any of these things. I'm not even like, I'm not saying this as a rant against people who do. Only if somebody is selling these things as a way of spiritual transformation, real transformation, which means that you had a certain kind of lifestyle and you were in a certain kind of place, and now you're in a different place, farther down some road, and a more enlightened place with behavior that is in line with this new place that you've gone to, that you've somehow become transformed, different, better, because you ingested something down the road. And the reason I'm even talking about it at all is just because this is the subject du jour. We're in Elul talking about Rosh Hashanah, but also because the people themselves that thought this was a magic elixir at some point recognized that it wasn't. And Ram Dass speaks about it, or in his recordings, and writes about it extensively. But even what's his name, Ken Kesey, and those guys on the West Coast eventually acknowledge. I don't know what the Grateful Dead. I don't know if what Bob Weir has to say about it, but almost all those guys on the West Coast felt like it didn't succeed at the transformation that they thought was possible. And part of it was while it seems to have, it could open your eyes to a kind to something you've never seen, and that could be impactful. It doesn't take you anywhere. Are you a better person? Is your life integrated with whatever realization you had at that point? Have you grown in any way without work? Is it possible to grow and change, to transform? Is that possible without the work of changing and transforming? So it seems to me that they were suggesting that the ones I was reading, maybe I'm very selective who I read, that they were suggesting that it doesn't come that way. Eventually you need to be on some kind of project, on some kind of program, which involves working on ourselves. It just doesn't come that way. It could happen, like for me, it's like losing weight. So for me, you've had diets that can cause you to lose like 40 pounds in 2 months, let's say, right? But then I've already had the experience, and it seems to be the experience of everybody else who's done almost everybody else who's done those, that if it comes off without work, then it comes right back on. It's very rare that somebody who's done one of those dramatic diets has been able to keep it off. I'm not saying nobody's ever been able to do it, but it's an extremely rare phenomenon.
They have to work at keeping it off.
Right, as opposed to the wisdom, which suggests that if you're able to, if you have a process that allows for lifestyle change and change of habits and practices and things, that you have a better chance at change. Those people who study change, like there's a book called Nudge by Richard Thaler, where he is in a school. He's an economics professor at University of Chicago, and he's talking about how to change people's behavior or actions, how to get people to take actions that they're not taking. This could matter to government. This could matter to schools. If you're a teacher, what kind of suggestions can you make to your students that will help them develop better study habits, or a different method for learning? So they've studied all different kinds of things. He's really like a student of Kahneman and Tversky, who have sort of turned the understanding that many academics had about human nature and what moves people and what causes people to change and how people think about the world. There was an assumption that people make decisions that are in their best interest, that or at least things that they think are in their best interest, are motivated to make decisions. They sort of turned that on its head and showed how often we make decisions that clearly are not in our best interest, that we don't seem to be motivated by it. But just all sorts of study about how we make decisions, what influences our decisions, and especially if you're trying to make decisions, you're trying to change for the better, what you believe is for the better. So there is a teaching that it either comes from Koheles or from Ecclesiastes or Mishlei. I'm not sure which one. I could look it up, but I did not. Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam, that a tzaddik falls 7 times and then rises. So the way it's typically understood is what distinguishes a righteous person from somebody who's not righteous, the tzaddik, from somebody who's not a tzaddik, is that they get up. It's not that they don't fall, but they get back up. The tzaddik falls 7 times, but he gets up. He or she gets up, but then that distinguishes them from other people. That's typically how it's understood, and I'm sure it means that. But it recently struck me that it might also mean that that is how change happens. That's how growth happens. That growth happens from falling. The actual growth, in other words, it requires it. It requires a challenge, and it requires what we would call failure. It's not just that failure tends to be a part of people's stories. It's that you can't,
You're learning from your mistakes.
right? You cannot grow. You should not assume that you can grow without falling. Imagine a teacher who, or a mentor who has a student who has just colossally messed up. And now the student is assuming that they're going to be tossed out of class. And the teacher approaches and the student says, all right, I'm packing up. I'll be out of here before you know it. And the teacher's going like, what are you talking about? I'm assuming you want to throw me out of class. And the teacher says, until now, you have not been interesting, but right now you became interesting, because until, and I could see this when it comes to, I certainly feel this way about students, that it's people who had failure in their life that are teachable, or at least acknowledge the failure in their life, that they become teachable. I know that from my own life, that it's not just that because it's likely that I will fail, I should just know that, failure happens, even good people fail, and therefore the key is just getting up. It's not just that, it's that you cannot grow, you will not grow. This is the nature of how it goes. You're not going to grow without failure. You're just not. You can't become a tzaddik without falling. It's not that if you want to be a tzaddik, just make sure to get up because you're going to fall a bunch of times. No, the falling is part of the growth. And this process, it involves a lot of failure. Our culture does not allow us to fail. It doesn't prepare us for failure, as failure is not an option. So when it happens, which it does, people are not prepared for what that means, that they failed. And it's very hard to get up afterwards. And maybe you failed once, but then, if you failed twice, I mean, it's just so rare. It's just so rare to find somebody who was prepared emotionally for that, right? To be prepared so that that you don't, again, you're not saying that I don't have responsibility for my failure, that I don't have responsibility to make people whole if there were people injured or somehow affected by my failure. It's not, this person is taking responsibility for it. They recognize that they did fail, that they had a goal and they did not achieve their goal, but also recognizing that that is what happens, and that it's okay. It still stings, but that it's not a judgment of my value as a human being. Or is it even an aberration? It's not an aberration it's more like, where is the failure going to happen and when is it going to happen? That's more probably the healthy attitude of somebody who's working on a long project. I don't know where we're going to have failure and when it's going to happen, but we are going to have failure, and let's plan, for how we're going to deal with it. We immediately take responsibility for it, things like that. Immediately acknowledge it, recognize it, apologize for it, try to fix what happened with it, and then try to learn from it and move on. You don't want to repeat it. That is how we think about tshuva in general. This period of time, this process, we don't think we're not going to do something wrong. The Beis Hamikdash is at the center of Jewish life. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, was at the center of the Jewish camp. It was according to the Ramban, according to Nachmanides, and there were a school of students of Nachmanides, the Mishkan always was supposed to be. There is an opinion that the Mishkan happens because of the golden calf. The tabernacle happens because of the golden calf. But if you look at the presentation in the Torah, the Mishkan is there before the golden calf. And the Ramban suggests that there always would have been a tabernacle, right? Because, in other words, it seems like from his worldview, at least this is one way of understanding it, that we're always going to have failures. We need a place to address them. We need a mindset that recognizes that God knows that, and that God still wants to have a relationship with us even after we've failed. So it's at the very center. The pilgrimage festivals are the highlight of our spiritual lives as a community. They happen in that place that's designed to help us renew, rekindle, fix our relationship with God and our relationship with our fellow Jewish people. The fact that we need that has been already well understood and established and built into our lives. Yom Kippur, there are many who experience it, and there's a lot of support for it, might be the holiest day of the year. Yom Kippur is about this subject. It is about the dealing with the consequences of failure, of trying to acknowledge it, say we're sorry, work on the consequences of it, and then move on. Because that is going to be a regular part of our lives. There are many people who feel like hypocrites every time they get to this time of year because, hey, we did this last year. We did this last year. We did this the year before. As we're getting on in age, some of us, not all of us. Liz has not gotten on in age since I've known her. But many of us have been getting on in age. And as we get on in age, there's another Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur season. There's another Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur season that's passed. And another time I can look back at where I had all these plans and all these, all this work. And then here I am again in a similar situation. My father had this rabbi in Denver when he was growing up, Rabbi Lederman. The shul was called the Alliance, and it was on the west side in Denver. And so, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I found these rabbinic manuals, or I don't know what you call them, these volumes that were put out every year that included sermons from rabbis around the country. And so I went back to during the Shoah, during the Holocaust, because I wanted to see what rabbis were talking about, what were shul rabbis talking about during those years. So they have the printed sermons from Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur times. And I found some from Rabbi Lederman, from my father's rabbi, so I printed them out, because these would have been sermons he was giving when my father was a kid going to, the synagogue. And so I remember in one of them, he asked the question, don't we do this every year? And he made the observation, we don't ask that question about taking a bath. Right? Isn't it ridiculous that I'm taking a bath? Didn't I just take a bath yesterday, or a shower? Didn't I just take a shower the other day, or cleaning my clothes? This is a fool's errand. I just cleaned these clothes last week, and now they're right back in the washing machine, because we understand that part of the experience of wearing clothing or living as a human being is that you get schwitzed up, or you get schmutz, and then you clean it off. So, and he was suggesting this is a similar thing about life, that as you're going through life, you get schmutzig, and you need to take a shower, or your clothing gets stained. When it happens, don't you always, I still feel like I did something wrong. If I'm eating and I get a stain from eating, I still feel like, you idiot, like there's a voice in my head. What is wrong with you? I don't know where that voice comes from, right? But still, like even getting my clothing dirty, I am like, how could you do that? And it's not dissimilar. It's not dissimilar to messing up with, with something else in life. It's like, and so what happens? It goes to the cleaner. Now, there are cleaners. The reason there's cleaners is because your clothing regular needs to be cleaned. There's a room. Usually you have a room for your washer and dryer and your laundry. You usually have a room designated for dealing with your washing and your laundry, right? This is expected, that this is going to be a part of life, that we're going to have to do it. Again,
the soul too.
Yes, and there's that kind of work. This doesn't minimize this is not meant to minimize, some of the things that we do wrong, because some of them do hurt people, the things we do wrong, or they could hurt ourselves. And they're not all the same. Some of them are small failures. Some of them are big ones, and we've made big mistakes, and those big mistakes. But even so, that is you cannot. It is Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'Kam. You cannot, if you want to become a tzaddik, if you're looking for correct action, if you want to be somebody who lives based on your moral values and who acts based on your moral values and achieves the goals that you imagine in your moral understanding of the goals of a human being, you are going to fall. Falling is going to be a part of it. And having a plan, being prepared for what to do when I fail is important. And doing it, learning to do it well requires a recognition that this is a part of living, just like it's part of living to clean your clothing and to take a shower. That is a part of living. And in a huge way, this is what this is a part of. The Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, when he, at the beginning of his Path of the Just, he describes our life here as a kind of interim period, that we've existed before as a self-aware being. Then we come into this existence, which we call this world. We come into this existence And then we're going to go to another plane of existence afterwards. Now, while we're here, he suggests that but a big part of what's going to happen is that we're going to be faced with challenges. And these challenges are going to be sort of like battles. He characterizes them like battles. And how we behave in those situations is a big part of why we're here. So our goal is to make the right choices in difficult situations. That's what he suggests is the character of this existence that we're in. We're not at our goal in this model. Our goal is what we call the world to come, right? Our ultimate goal. We're not at the ultimate goal. We're in the place where you're working to get to that end place, but you're not in the place. There's a lot of us who imagine, almost all of us imagine, that there's some place here in this existence that you can get to that's a final destination. That is a kind of utopia. That is a kind of realization of the rewards for the work that we did. And he and the sages in many places suggest that it's not available in this world. Like it says, Vayeshev Yaakov settled down. Bikesh Yaakov Lashevas Bishalva. Yaakov wanted to sit in peace or comfort. He just felt like he had gone through everything he went through, and now he's just gonna sort of retire in peace. And Hashem said, it's not enough for these people what they're going to get and the reward they're going to get in the world to come. They want to have it here, they want to have it in this place. And immediately the Yosef story starts up, like a whole nother chapter. Part of the teaching there is that's just not what. This is not like that. This life isn't about that. This life is about the work. The work is the thing that matters. A shortcut pill is not, it's not going to fit the point of this life. Shortcut to what? Right? This life is about the work. It doesn't mean that it has to be hard every day. It doesn't have to be that it wears on you every day. Or that you have to be constantly living in failure, with the sense of failure every day. That doesn't have to be the nature of it, but that there's going to be failure, that there's going to be days where it's hard. There's going to be times where you doubt yourself, where you feel vulnerable, where it feels like the ground is removed from under your feet. And that is not a signal that something terribly wrong has happened. That's a signal that life happened, that this is life. If somebody's experiencing it, they're going, I've done something terribly wrong. I violated some rule of this universe, and therefore I am put in some kind of corner to be punished, etc. That is, and that I'm rare and unique. Other people don't have this. They don't fail. They don't fall. It's not hard for them. They don't feel like the earth has been removed from under their feet. That's how I might feel about it, but that's not the way it is. This is the nature of this work. It's always supposed to be about the work. It's not, really isn't in this thing about the destination in this world. It is really about the work. And yeah, so that is my rant after seeing that thing about the diet pill, about Oprah's diet pill.
Always because of a diet pill.
Right. And Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur coming. At that combination. All right. So Jason has my favorite quote from Bob Weir on the acid tests. It was more fun than a frog in a glass of milk. That's good. I like it. It is excellent to have been able to share this time with you. Next week, we're not going to meet, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately for me, I'm going to be spending the week with my father in Door County. But we're not going to be getting together on our Zoom, but we'll get together in 2 weeks. I look forward to that. And it means a tremendous amount to me to be connecting with you.
When's Rosh Hashanah?
I think we have that one. I think we have one more. I think we will have that one.
Yeah,
more.
the 26th is Rosh Hashanah.
Right. So next week is the
13th, 12th.
like the 13th. So we'll still have one more. I think one more Tuesday
13th,
before.
7 would be the 20th. So we meet on
Right.
the 20th, the week with the 20th.
Look what it looks like when people actually show their faces on Zoom. I mean, it's just amazing. There's Doris, there's Rojalea, there's Jason. It's just amazing.
Real
There's actually
faces?
human beings. I mean, those avatars are pretty expressive, but but it's awesome to see your faces. There's Arona on the Serengeti.
What are we gonna do with 2?
It's awesome to see you guys. Be well.
This is
Have a
the
great week.
whole-
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.